als ich mit knapper Not überlebt, ist dann in die USA ausgewandert und im Jahr 2005 hat er irgendwie Kontakt zu St. Anna gesucht. Also er hat sich irgendwie erinnern können, dass er in St. Anna als 19-Jähriger quasi als Zwangsarbeiter eingesetzt wurde und hat übers Internet mit dem damaligen Bürgermeister Kontakt aufgenommen und hat gefragt, ob das jetzt dieses St. Anna war. Es war es dann wirklich und seit 2005 kommt er jedes Jahr einen Monat und lebt bei der Familie des ehemaligen Bürgermeisters und seine Mission ist eben, seine Geschichte möglichst vielen Schülerinnen und Schülern zu erzählen. Und das funktioniert wirklich eigentlich seit Anbeginn so gut, dass wir uns eigentlich immer freuen, wenn der Oktober, November kommt, weil dann kommt Sandor Vandor wieder und wir haben die Möglichkeit, eben noch viel mehr Schülerinnen und Schülern seine Geschichte zu präsentieren. Ich glaube, das war
jetzt sind wir eben beim Stichwort, die Geschichte möglichst vielen Schülerinnen und Schülern zu präsentieren. Danke, Elisabeth. Ja. Ich muss mich jetzt gleich entschuldigen, ich habe immer Sandor gesagt. Eine Kollegin von mir hat gemeint Sandor, aber es heißt offensichtlich...
Also man kann beides sagen.
Also man kann beides, okay.
Sandor Vandor is American form and Sandor Vandor is the Hungarian form.
Yes.
Okay,
also
wir sind beide richtig.
Man kann es auf Ungarisch oder auf Englisch.
For me it makes no difference.
Okay, wir sind jetzt eben bei dem Stichwort, die Geschichte möglichst vielen Jugendlichen zu erzählen. Und wir starten jetzt gleich mit unserer Live-Übertragung. Mein Kollege, der Joachim, darf dich jetzt auch noch einmal begrüßen vom Verein Xenus. Er betreut uns heute da bei der Übertragung im Internet. In Bruck an der Mur im Stadtmuseum sind, wie gesagt, jetzt auch 80 Jugendliche zu Gast. Also mehr als 100 Jugendliche werden heute die Geschichte von Sandor Vandor hören können, erleben können und auch ihre Fragen schicken können. Und die Jugendlichen in Bruck an der Mur sind jetzt auch soweit mit der Einführung und Start klar. Das heißt, ich begrüße jetzt als erstes einmal unsere Partnergruppe in Bruck. Ein herzliches Willkommen. Ein herzliches Willkommen an alle Jugendlichen aus Leoben, aus Mürzzuschlag, aus Kapfenberg und aus Seckau. Und auch ein herzliches Willkommen zu unserem heutigen Zeitzeugentag, Generationendialog erobert YouTube. Wir haben schon die Einführung genossen über das Leben von Herrn Sandor Vandor. Wir haben uns schon mit seiner Biografie beschäftigt. Und ich darf noch vorstellen, meine Kolleginnen am Podium, 2 Schülerinnen vom Borg Bad Radkersburg. Ihr beide habt euch selber schon intensiv mit der Geschichte von St. Anna am Aigen beziehungsweise auch mit der Biografie von Herrn Sandor Vandor beschäftigt. Elisabeth Arlt vom Pavelhaus, eine Kooperationspartnerin in diesem Projekt und unseren Zeitzeugen, Herrn Sandor Vandor aus den USA, der uns jetzt über sein Leben und vor allem über sein Überleben während des Zweiten Weltkriegs berichten wird. Gibt es vorweg eine Frage vom Kollegium aus Bruck oder können wir starten? Danke. Es gibt noch keine Frage. Herzlichen Dank. Der Joachim wird mir nur immer kurz ein Zeichen geben, damit ihr nur wisst, also alle Fragen, die aus Bruck kommen, werden über meine Kollegin, über die Corinna und über den Joachim an mich hereingespielt. Ja, danke. Welcome here in Graz. Thank you for your coming. And
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Elizabeth told you more than 100 young people will listen to your history now, and I think we can start.
My name is Sandor Vandor. I was born in Hungary and I lived in Hungary in 1944-45. In 1944, I was 19 years of age. I was conscripted to the Hungarian Army Labor Battalion. Jews were not able to carry arms, but the army still needed our work, and they designed work battalions instead of fighting soldiers. Officially, every division was assigned to Army division to help the Army fight the war. But in my case, our group of forced laborers were assigned a job in an oil refinery in Szöny. Szöny is a small village near Komárom, right at the Danube. The oil refinery was bombed out by the Allied bomber, and our job was to rebuild the oil refinery, clear the rubble, and get the machinery going again. We completed this task, and late summer the oil refinery was started to work again. Allied reconnaissance noticed that, and they came with a second bombing round, and that time they did a better job, and our job changed to, instead of building an oil refinery or going to make it work, we had to dismantle, and every movable item was sent up on a barge to Germany proper. Not every barge reached Germany because the Allied bomber seeded the Danube with mines, so we were able to see all the items we loaded into the barge. A day later was floating down in the river downwards on the Danube. This job lasted till about Christmas time. By that time the Russian army was moving toward west and reached Hungarian proper, and the German order was to evacuate laborers to German proper. We were taken from Szöny to Sopron in a death march where the formation was given, and if you ever stepped out of line, there were soldiers behind who were taking the shot. We reached Sopron suburb. In that place, we were asked to put our blanket on the earth, empty all our pockets and our rucksack, and the guards was helping themselves. This way they confiscated everything what we had. To make sure that we will obey and not hide anything in pocket, they randomly picked out two of our comrades and lined them up, and they lined up a firing squad, and we had to watch them die with firing squad bullets. Just to show us that if they say empty the pocket, everything, then we will behave and we empty. If not, this will be our fate, that we will die. Finally, we reached in Sopron. Sopron, we were housed in the brick factory, where inside the brick kiln, they were able to squeeze in about 3,000 Jews. They blocked off almost all the exit and entrance except one, where one guard was able to guard and cover 3,000 people. They formed different groups based on the requirements of the German army, and after 2 nights of staying over there, a group was formed where I was part of that group. My friend, a childhood friend, was with me. He was also part of the same group. We were taken from Sopron by walking further toward Austria. We crossed the border somewhere in Sopron area, near Eisenstadt. The first station was a state winery, where we had to take a delousing bath. They wanted to make sure definitely that in our body and in our belongings we are not going to bring in any pest fleas, blouse or bed box or anything like that. So we had to take a delousing bath, which was a warm water bath with a special soap. In the meantime, all our belongings were sterilized in a steam oven. It's very important that this happening was in about mid-January. And this way we entered Austria proper, totally cleaned or any possible illness or anything which carries disease. In that, after the bath, another short walk, we were reaching the railroad line, most likely the Győr-Sopron-Ebenfurt line, and we were put on railroad cars, traveled to south to Färing station. At Färing station, debarked from the railroad and walked to Santa Ana, and in Santa Ana village we were housed. We reached the Santa Ana village something like late afternoon, so we only had time to settle down and go to sleep. Next morning we were waken up on early time. We had no rush to take any bath because there was no bath, no water was available for wash up. We were served breakfast. The breakfast was every day the same and scientifically designed. For breakfast we received about a half a liter volume of brownish color liquid, warm brownish color liquid. It called coffee, had nothing to do with coffee beans. And a piece of bread, approximately 100 grams. Occasionally, something like every 10 days, we received a spoonful of marmalade. That was the breakfast. After breakfast, we were escorted by SS troops to the work site. The work site was near the Slovenian border, at the present border. That was the border always between Austria, Slovenia, and Hungary. In that area, the German army employed already many Jews all the way from in Burgenland area and in Steierland borders between Hungary and Austria. And we were also working in border reinforcement. Our group, given the task of digging Panzergraben. Panzergraben is a big ditch. It was 5 meters wide on the top, 5 meters deep, and 4.5 meters wide on the bottom. They formed small groups of 10 workers, and every 10 workers had to finish every day 1 meter length of Panzergraben. That basically 10 people had to haul out 25 cubic meter of dirt every single day. Mind you, the time is late January, February, and early March. The earth is frozen, and sometimes it's wet from the rain. Most of the time it's frozen from the snow, and nevertheless we had to finish our job. For incentives, every 10 persons, whenever they finished the 1 meter length of Panzergraben, were able to go back to the barrack without any escort. So that was incentive because outside the field the weather was wintry weather, and in the barrack it was a small stove making wood fire stove, making some little warmth. It was always better than the outside temperature and suffering outside. So we did our work diligently to get back to the barrack fast as we can. At the end of the day, when everybody came back, or almost everybody, around 6 o'clock, they served dinner. Dinner was served, again, a half a liter of liquid. This time the liquid color was gray and also warm. Officially was named soup. Later on I find out that was real soup. When they made it in the kitchen, they used cabbage, potato, carrots, and all other root vegetables to make soup. But when it was served to us, it was served only the liquid portion. And then again, that was part of the scientifically designed food what forced laborers were getting. If you are a human being, you will have to have approximately minimum 1 liter of liquid a day in order to keep a minimum hydration of the body and not be dehydrated. Dehydrated body cannot work, cannot produce pensagraben or any other physical required work. But the calories based on the breakfast and the dinner was very, very meager. How would you say 100 grams of bread? What was the calorie given? 100 calories, maybe? So they designed the food such that we will able to work, exert all our physical power through the work, have enough liquid so we won't dehydrate, and eventually we're going to starve to death. And that way they have no expense to kill us. No bullet required, no other expensive equipment, just no food and plain die. And they knew that we will last maybe 2.5 months. In end of March, or middle of March, I contracted flective from lice. You will ask the question, how come that I was deloused in mid-January, and within 6 weeks' time I had louse and contracted flectifus. Number one, personal hygiene was totally non-existent. We didn't have not a single drop of water available for us. In before Sopron, my personal belongings were all confiscated except the clothing I was wearing on that day. And that's the clothing I had. Since we had no other choice, no other clothing, and no chance of washing the clothes, and also everybody else had the same situation. Somebody had better shoes than the other, and somebody had a better shirt than the other. So we were better off keeping our shirt in our bag and keeping our shoes in our feet. So I slept for all the time to mid-January till April 5 in the same clothing without ever untying the shoelaces. That was the hygiene. The work was heavy. the food was meager or non-existent. In that short period of time, I lost 1/3 of my body weight. While we were working, since we wanted to go always back to the barrack early, we were diligently doing our work to finish the daily quota as soon as possible. Most of the time, we finished the daily quota, say somewhere around 3:30, 4 o'clock. I had a childhood friend with me. He was also in the same group of 10 as I was. And then when we get back to the barrack, I approached him with an idea. I told him, if we're going to do this what they demand from us, we're going to starve to death, and starving to death is a very long and painful process. Or if we're going to get some food any other way, we will risk something else. I suggested that we climb over the fence and visit the neighboring villages and knock on doors and simply beg for food. If they're going to catch us in the villages, the first thing will be that we are fugitive, we are not in our campus where we were supposed to be, so we will be treated as fugitives, shot on the spot. Then we were breaking a German law. They say to the Austrian people that you cannot talk to a Jew, you cannot feed to a Jew. If you do this, it's a capital crime and you will be facing death or concentration camp. Not only you, but your family included. So I told my friend, if we go out to the villages and we beg for food, we will get some food and we will have a chance to survive as long as it takes. So we won't die as fast as the German designed. But here is another catch. The war started in 1939. From that day on, the German army conscripted the able-bodied men to the German army to fight their war. So we're looking in a farming community where the male population is not home. They are fighting Hitler's war. Who was left home? Women, children, and elderly. A farming community lives by working the field all year round and do the harvest once a year, and then they harvest the produce. They have something to eat, and the leftover being sold on the open market for money, and that way they can buy their other necessary equipment in farming equipment or clothing or repairing their homes and whatever they needed. Now, we were already in 44, so it's 5 years already in the war, and there are no men at home. They still had harvest, but very poor harvest. So poor that was not sufficient food for the villagers for themselves to feed their own family. When we went out begging for food, they gave us food. From the little they had, they shared.